In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down techniques and the methods that I used and why I used them on Michaela's balayage. And I did change a few things around, and I'm going to be breaking down how and why I did those things. And I've also got 7 tips that I like for beginners. And I promise by the end of this video, you're going to have a deeper understanding, and I'm going to be revealing at the end, the last tip is very helpful for beginners. So, what's up guys? I'm Maureen Moody and I'm the Curious Stylist, and I want to build your confidence in your career through education and science. So if that sounds like fun, stick around.
So let's get into this. So what I like to do with my balayage clients is I like to flat iron their hair and cut them before I balayage them. This helps to ensure that I'm not cutting off the balayage when it's all said and done. I'm using Blondme Clay lightener. It is a fantastic lightener. It's my favorite. And I mix that 35 grams of the clay lightener to 50 grams of 40 volume developer or 12%. So the thing about balayages is that it's a very creative process. And I like to not just stick with one particular method of applying the lightener. I am actually starting in the front today. My girl, Michaela, she wanted her hair to be a little stronger this time. She wanted to go a little blonder. She didn't want to be super blonde, so we're still sticking with the balayage and not going for a foliage. But I am starting her in the front so that the lightener can stay on there as long as possible. Now the thing about balayage lightener is it does dry out, and when it dries out, it stops working, so it's not quite as strong. So I am incubating it in a little bit of saran wrap, and that is to help keep it a little moist. It's not gonna like stop it from drying out completely, but it does slow it down a little bit. Gives it a little bit more longevity with the processing time. So I am starting in the front to give her front a longer period of time to lighten and become a little bit brighter. Now the thing about balayage is that it is 3-dimensional. When you were working with foils, you were slapping that hair on a foil and you're just trying to lift to the highest capacity. But when you are working with balayage, you have to be a little bit more patient with the lifting process. It is not as strong. It's more soft. It looks more sun-kissed. And that is why it's just one of my favorite methods of lightening the hair, because it's a lot more artistic when you're playing with, because you are actually working with full panels of the hair and you are working with them in a 3-dimensional sense. So these front pieces are the most important pieces, and it is really important to take your time when you are working in the front of your guest's hair. I have to say, I spend probably 2/3 of my time working on the front and making sure I get that right. And in the back, I whiz through that a lot quicker. So just take your time when you are working, especially when you're working in your front pieces. And that's my tip number 1. You've got to keep in mind that if it is not white, it's not going to be light. And clay lightener does not lift like foil lightener. Clay lightener has up to 7 levels of lift, while Blondme is up to 9 levels of lift. And my tip number 2 is why I use 40 volume is because in the open air, it's not encapsulated in a foil, so it behaves like a 20. And how you layer it is going to give you the strength. So an open air 40 volume is going to behave like a 20 volume in a foil if you layer it properly. Tip number 3 is if you have oversaturated that front corner right there, right where I'm placing the lightener, if you put a little too much lightener, and this will work anywhere, you take the back end of your tail comb, the pin part of the tail comb, and you're going to stick that at the top of the hair and comb it through. And by doing that, you're actually diffusing the lightener and drying it out. And this is one of my favorite tips so that it gives it a very natural appearance around the front hairline. You're going to see a diagram in a second or two of the sections that I took for her hair. And the reason why we work in diagonal sections, working back, is that is going to diffuse the light and it's not going to show up as strong. When you work in panels that are like horizontally going back, it softens the highlight appearance. And I'm working in those deep V's because I still want to build blondness on the ends, like lightness on the end, but I want some depth still in the center, but I want it a little bit brighter than we did it the last time. She wanted a little more blonde this time. So my tip number 4 is, if you are working with this lightener and you are trying to blend things out, and it gets a little farther away from you and you're going to take a little bit longer than you want to get the hair blended out with the brush, I take the sponge, and I love that sponge. It helps to really blend things without me having to get my fingers dirty or have to wipe my hands off. I can just pick up that sponge and it really helps. So what's great about the surface painting is when you are lifting it and you're making it very white on the top, the underneath is not lifting because that is not saturated at all. So most of the paint is surface painting. So
Can you do me a favor? If you are finding value in this content, please smash the like button and subscribe. I make weekly videos.
now I am working on the other side, and you can kind of get a view of what I'm working with and how I am blending it. What I really like about the zero time brushes is it has that precision of a Famar brush, but it also has that painter blender bristles, which make it really soft and beautiful and easy to work with. I spend less time blending when I'm working with this particular brush. So if you haven't given these brushes a try, for balayages, I feel like it's a must. So here's that diagram again. I'm going to show you how I sectioned at the top of the head and how I did make these triangles a little bit more intersecting, but it's very soft placement. So it's horizontal, and you could see that like horizontal diagonal sort of parting. So it adds softness, but I'm really trying to bring up that blonde around her face and putting a little bit more blonde in the back. Now we are moving on to the back, and for some reason I find the back to be a lot easier to work with. Now this is my go-to pattern when I'm working in the back of the head. The intersecting triangles help to build strength in the hair and add like a lot of lightness flowing in a lot of different directions. So my tip number 5 is that a 40 can be used to make many different strengths. So when you are layering your lightener on, the whiter it is, the more lift it's going to get. And if you want it to lift a lot, you can cake that stuff on. It will give the maximum lift when you are doing that. Because it is open air, remember that a 40 is going to behave like a 20. Tip number 6. See that blob of lightener that fell on her head? I'm going to use this comb to scrape it out. See how I just flicked it out? I'm going to do it again. I'm going to use that comb and I'm going to pick that lightener up, and because it's clay, it sticks together. Now I flicked it off with the other comb. So I needed a fresh comb so I wouldn't put lightener into the hair, and so I used that black comb to do that. So if you ever have that happen to you, which I've had that happen many a time, don't freak out and just use that comb like I was saying to flick it out. It will remove really nice and easily. So if you want me to spend more time discussing saturation and my patterns and placement, please leave a comment below. I would love to go more in depth with this subject. Tip number 7 is going to be really helpful with people that are just starting out, especially at the top of the round of the head when you're working in balayage. That spot can really show a lot of blemishes when you are working in that section. So this is a really fun hack when you are working at the very top. and getting your blending just right. So what you're going to want to do when you use that last triangle is you're going to back comb the hair. See how I'm back combing that top section? And I'm going to be applying the lightener to the surface of it. And this is going to help stop any kind of weird blips or like irregularities that you might see when you were seeing that veil hanging down. So again, you're going to back comb. One thing too, I do multiple mixings of the lightener because I want my lightener to be fresh and powerful. So not one bowl for the entire head. I did 3 bowls of lightener on her, and I did 30 grams per mixing. So you're just going to be layering that on. And this is I found this particular technique to be very easy. And I wish I had it in the very beginning because it really helped the top to blend beautifully. Now this is what it looks like after I'm finished lightening it for about 45 minutes. Glazed her, and here are the results. I want you to take a look at the back and see how nice that blend is back there. For the bloopers.
Have a little more confidence when you're getting ready to work on it. Now I have 7 tips, and you're gonna wanna stick around for all 7 because he's just protecting the family. You get it.